Hey, y'all. Hey. So, welcome back to Best Life Abroad, not your average travel podcast. So, today's episode is a special one because this is our season finale of season 4 of our podcast. So, we are going out with a bang today. So, if you have been following along this season, we've already covered how to get a digital nomad visa, how much money you really need for your move abroad. We talked about H-1B visas, passport privileges, even how to test drive a country before committing. So you have all of the practical information that you need. So now we're going to talk about what is actually stopping you from making this move. We've talked about it. You said you want to do it. So what is it that is getting in your way? Because let us be honest. We can all Google all the information that we want. We can join all the Facebook groups. We can learn about every podcast. But at some point, we have to stop planning and start doing. Okay? So today, we are going to be breaking down the most common excuses and fears that I have heard that keep people from making their dream happen of moving abroad. And I'm going to show you how to push past those things. So this is real talk today about how to get off the dreaming and thinking phase to move into action. So by the end of today, you will have no more excuses. We're going to just have a plan and motivation to make this dream of living abroad a reality for you. Okay. All right. We all agree. So let's go ahead and get into it. So, number one, the excuses that we tell ourselves, we're going to talk about why we're going to push past them today. So, let's start with some of the most common things that I hear from people who say that they want to move abroad, but just don't do it. So the number one reason why is I hear people say, I do not have enough money. Okay. That is a very classic thought. Now, I get it. Moving abroad is not free, but you do not need to be rich either. So the real questions that you need to ask yourself are, do I have a plan? So have you researched how much it is actually going to cost to live in the country that you want to move to? Have you ever created a realistic budget? Did you start setting aside money or even just a little bit a month? Like we talked about last week, let's start that move abroad fund now. So when you start making actions towards your move abroad, it makes it real. And most of the time, it's not that we don't have money, it's that we are not prioritizing this move abroad. Okay. We buy what we want to buy when we want to buy it, and then we say we don't have money for the move abroad. We do, but we just have to figure out how to put that at the top of the priority list. So if it's like I mentioned in our last episode, if I want to go somewhere or I want to move abroad, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, I'm not going because I'm ready to move abroad. And whatever money I was going to spend gas getting there, if it's going out to dinner or food eating there because I'm going to order what I want. Let's be realistic. If it's going shopping with some people, with friends, family, I'm not going shopping because if I see a cute shirt, I'm going to buy it. Let's be realistic. Okay. And more than likely, knowing me, is not going to be the cheapest shirt that's there. Okay. So taking a look at what you are spending and where you can cut costs, that extra $50, $100, that can go straight into your Move Abroad fund. Okay, so let's talk about it's not the question of do I have enough money? It's what am I doing to make sure that I have enough money? Okay, number two of what I hear, I don't know where to move. Okay, so you want to move, but you don't know where to go. That is not a reason to stay stuck. Okay, that's a reason to start researching. So, what's important to you in where you want to live? Is it low cost of living? Is it warm weather? Is it having a Black expat community? Okay. So, for example, my home outside of the US is Belgium. All right. Now, when I think about what is a priority for me in terms of in this phase of my life, which is would have been different if you were asking me my first time living abroad. But right now, what's important for me in terms of a country, which I would prioritize, is feeling completely comfortable in being myself in that space. And so I find that in Belgium. Is it the cheapest country to live in? Absolutely not. Okay. But I know that when I step on that good Belgian soil and I land at BRU, I feel like, oh, I am home. I can be me. I don't have to worry about being followed places. I don't have to be scared sending my kid to school thinking that there might be weapons. Like, I feel great when I land in Belgium. I know I'm not living in the cheapest country that I could live in. I could save some good coins living somewhere else. But that is a place where I feel like my number one priority is being met. Is it the warmest weather? Absolutely not. I'm going to have to wait until July to find a beach anywhere. Okay? Because these feet are not going in cold water. So I know that there are other things that might be a higher priority for you that maybe it ranges differently on my priority scale. So, what are your priorities? Is it being in expat communities where your identity is reflected? For example, I identify as a Black woman. There are not a whole lot of American or Black women from the United States who are living in Belgium. However, there are lots of Black women in Belgium. So I know that I can build a community with other people who share my identity in some ways. And then there are also large US expat communities in Belgium. So I can get both of the things that I need while I'm there. Okay. So think about what is really the priority for you in a country, and that will help you narrow it down. Pick your three. Once you go through your list of priorities, it's very possible that one will stand out. Okay. And then you think of, okay, now what kind of visa options do I have in this country? What language are you comfortable navigating? If you know you only want to go to a place where you need to speak English, then you might need to cross Costa Rica off your list. Okay. So, what is it going to be? There might be things that you can do now to help you have a clearer vision and direction for this move. But just saying, I'm not really sure, but you haven't put any of the action into it, that's not going to work. That is not going to help your dream of moving abroad happen. Okay. And you do not have to commit to any place forever. Your first country that you move abroad to does not have to be your forever home. I first moved abroad and I moved to Madrid, Spain. That was not the place for me. I did not feel comfortable there. I did not feel safe there. It was not the place I wanted to live in. However, I did learn the language I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn Spanish. And I also pulled from that experience the things that I did like. I could go for a siesta. That sounded lovely. Okay. Where we're going to take every single day during the work week, we're going to take a little break, spend time with our family, and have a good meal together. That sounds wonderful. So I knew that there was a certain lifestyle that I wanted that places, countries that have a culture similar to Spain could give me, but it was not Spain that was a country that was going to give me that. So then I had to figure out again, what were my priorities? So it just so happened that from there, then we moved to Germany. Germany was awesome, but Germany also had some things in terms of culturally that might have been my jam, but it wasn't necessarily my husband's. And it definitely wasn't a place where I step outside my door and just think, oh, I can be me. There was the opposite of that. But people were extraordinarily hospitable and friendly, and it was a great place when we lived there. But then once we moved to Belgium, it was like, oh, wow. I didn't know I could feel like this. And that's how that became the place. So your first place might not be your forever home, but it's about figuring out how to make that move happen so then you can see it also could be. Okay. So go ahead, choose your three countries that interest you and start deep diving into them this week. This is something you can do this week. Then you can say, okay, I'm putting money aside and I know what country I'm moving to. All right. Now, the third thing that I hear is one that I know has lots of emotion behind it, and it is what if I fail? Okay. So let's just sit with this one for a second. Okay. Now, what if I fail? It is a real question to ask, and it is a real thing to consider. Okay. It is also something that with preparation and planning, it can mitigate a lot of those fears that you have around failure. But I hear this one all the time. What if I move and I hate it? What if I can't find a job there? If you listen to these podcasts, we're not even going to have that problem. But what if something goes wrong? Okay. And you know what I think is more reframing. What if you succeed? What if you move abroad and it is the best decision that you have ever made? That is me. I moved abroad and that is the best decision I have ever made in my entire life. It has literally changed the trajectory of every single thing that I have ever done since I moved and lived abroad in 2003. It is 2025. Okay. So it is very possible that instead of focusing on the failure, you can pivot that mindset to focus on what could happen that could be amazing when you move abroad. What if you discover a life that feels more aligned with who you are? Again, exhibit A right here. What if you thrive in a way that you never did back home? What if you go to a new place, pick up your family, uproot them, move them to another place, and you see your kids thrive and be accepted in a way that they never ever have, that you never ever thought was even possible in your home country? Okay. So let's just be real. Failure is not even the right word, okay? It's more like worst case scenario. And worst case scenario, you come back home. We already talked about making sure you had enough money in reserve that if all goes to Hades, you can come on back home. Okay. And guess what? If you have to come back home, you will be perfectly fine because you will have now gained new experiences. You now have a new perspective. You now have more clarity. You now have a better understanding of what your priorities really are, what is necessary for you to feel comfortable in an environment. Okay. So you're coming, if you have to come back home, you're coming back home with a new set of skills and a new thought process of how you can live your best life and what you need to be able to do that. So it's not about failure. It's really about perspective and thinking through the fact that you could make this move and it could be terribly terrible. Okay. But you also could make this move and it could be amazing. And there's only one way to find out which end of the spectrum that is going to be. Okay. And I really want you to just take some time, journal this out. What is the worst case scenario if you move abroad that you have in your mind? And then what is the best case scenario that you have in your mind? And I bet you'll see that so much of that is upside versus the fear. You probably have a much longer best case scenario list than you do worst case scenario. Okay. And there is power in taking small steps. So, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is thinking that they have to move abroad all at once. Like, sell everything, quit your job, and then you're just going to go. But it doesn't have to be that way. So, we just talked about things that you can do right now to prepare for your move abroad. Moving abroad is a process, and you want to start that process. Okay, you don't want to just say, all right, I'm ready. I'm moving next week because that is not going to happen more than likely. So instead of overwhelming yourself, start breaking it down into small, manageable steps. Step one, you are going to figure out which country you want to live in. Okay. Figure out your top three, narrow it down to one. Boom, country decided. Step two, you are going to get your move abroad savings going. So start saving a small amount every month. You will, once you actually are like, okay, it's time for us to go, we're ready, you'll be surprised to see how much you've been able to put away to give yourself a foundation for your move. Step three, figure out what are those visa options that you have in that country that you're moving to. All right. Once you figure out your visa, you don't even have to figure out your visa yet. You might even be like, okay, well, I don't have time to figure out the visa. So I'm just going to go ahead. Step three is going to be starting to get rid of as much as I can. Okay. It needs to be manageable for you. This is not a one size fits all. It's a plug and play. So whatever you can start doing now to prepare for your move, do it. Join all of these amazing expat groups, especially the ones all over Facebook. You can start talking to people who already live there. They can help you through your visa process. Somebody who moved there a month ago, they are very well versed in what the process is to move. So they can help you through these processes. Okay. And then start that scouting trip. Even if it's just for a few weeks, you want to say, okay, I think I want to move my family to Colombia. Great. Go in the summertime. Spend the summer in Colombia with your family. How do y'all feel about it? That can help you decide. If then you can say, okay, we decided it was wonderful. 18 months from now, we want to be living in Colombia. Amazing. We have something to work with. Okay. So again, you want to just write down three small things that you can do this month to move closer to your goal of being abroad. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be start saving as much as you can, start putting a little bit away in your move abroad fund, figure out which country you want to move to, and start purging and getting rid of all the extra things that you have. And then join a Facebook group. So then you can continue with your motivation, but also have support there and people who actually know the process and can help you through. Okay. So I have worked with so many people that thought like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to move abroad. Like, this is just an idea that I have. And I just want to kind of think about what that idea could be, but I'm not really ready yet. And honestly, nothing ever happens in terms of actually moving abroad until you make a decision to do it. Okay, that decision is going to be the changer of the trajectory of your move and the pace of your move. Okay, otherwise, it's just kind of over here floating in the air versus like actionable things that you're actually putting forward to make it happen. Okay. So, a few people who I've talked to that really had cool stories. So one was like a single mom, and she was trying to think through like, can I really afford this move? She wanted to move with her daughter to Mexico. And so, she was like, I'm just not sure that I can make it happen. And so she decided, okay, this year I'm going to give myself 12 months, and this by the end of these 12 months, I want to be living in Mexico with my daughter. So the latest time for her to be in Mexico was 12 months. So she actually quit her job, found, I think it was a virtual assistant role that she could do from anywhere in the world. And so she decided to do that. And because she moved to a country with a lower cost of living, she was able to support her daughter with that job. And so they moved to Mexico within that 12-month span. Okay. I'm having more and more conversations with like corporate executives, C-suites, who just feel trapped in their roles. They're like, I've done this for 35 years. I'm pretty much over it. Okay. And my favorite story is one who is now running a remote business from Spain. Okay. Who's like, listen, I know I can do this job like the back of my hand, but I don't want to do it how I've been doing it. And so I'm going to try something different. And now he's living his best life. I'm all about the educators, as you know. And so even we had Miss Darlene on our podcast last season who talked to us about her decision to retire as a teacher and to move to Serbia with her daughter. And she is now living her best life abroad in Serbia with her daughter. So these people were not special as in they were not unique. They were not an example to say, okay, well, some people can make it happen, but they didn't have all the answers when they started. They just took action. And that is what I want for you too. I want you to understand that you do not have to have everything mapped out. That is where I can help you. But I do want you to start taking action because that is what is going to make your dream of moving abroad actually happen. Okay. So, how do you actually commit and make a plan? How do you turn that dream into a reality? I'm going to tell you a few recommendations that I have. So, my first recommendation is to set a deadline. You'll see in those stories that I told, several of them were like, okay, by this time, I'm going to do this. When you are moving abroad, you really want to give yourself a real timeline to go by. Okay. The first time that, or the second time that I moved abroad, I didn't have a real timeline because I was looking for a specific offer for employment. And so it was like, okay, and it was my husband's specific offer of employment because he was a football player. So he needed a contract that would allow us to move. So we couldn't set a deadline because we didn't know when he would get a contract. But we did all the things that I'm telling you about. I'm not just saying them, we did them. So we started putting our move abroad money into our move abroad fund. We started getting rid of as much as we could. And looking back, We could have gotten rid of a whole lot more. We should have gotten rid of a whole lot more than we did. We decided, okay, these are the area of countries that we're willing to move to. Because again, we couldn't pinpoint. Again, this is not a one size fits all. This is a plug and play. So you have to see what works for you. We couldn't pinpoint an exact country because it was, again, based on his contract. But we knew like if there are countries within this area that offer us a contract meeting these criterias, that's something that we could do. Okay, so we figured out what was, and also like what visas do we need in those countries? We did figure that part out. So there are things that you can do right now, but you need to be specific about your plan. Okay. Secondly, write out your first three action steps right now, not 20. We can all think of 20 different things that you can do, just three. Write out your first three action steps. I start to put money in this account every month, whatever I can. Or if you're a consistency person, I put this amount in this account on the 13th of every month. Or that can be step one. Step two can be I will decide which country I would like to move to within the next 3 weeks. And step three can be I will start paring down one room at a time to make sure that when it's time to go and I have this job offer, I'm ready to go. Okay. So you can figure out what are the three things that you know you can do right now. It may not be I'm going to secure a visa because that's a process. It may not be I am going to find a place to live because you may not know which country you want to live in yet. So, what are three things that you can do right now to begin taking steps towards your move abroad? Okay. And then you also want to hold yourself accountable. How will you hold yourself accountable to these things? Will it be telling a friend? If you have a friend who's a hater or who really does not want you to move abroad, that's probably not the person you want to tell. But someone who will support you and be like, okay, it's been 3 weeks. What do we have packed? Joining a community. So that can be again like these Facebook communities and say, hey y'all, I'm trying to move in 6 months and I need some accountability to get X, Y, and Z done. Somebody in Colombia wants you to move there with them. And so they would be happy to be an accountability partner for you. Okay. You can work with a coach like me. I love accountability calls. I am all about that life. Okay, let's see where we are, what we accomplished, what we didn't, and how we're going to pivot and make a new plan. I am all about them. They are some of my most favorite calls that I have. So there are ways for you to really hold yourself accountable to that plan, but you have to figure out what works best with you. Okay. Now, listen, you are never going to feel 100% ready. It's just like, what people say about getting married, about having kids, that there's no perfect time to go. And it's really the same thing with moving abroad. There will always be reasons to wait. But the truth is that there is only now. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Your best life abroad is waiting for you. It's just sitting there. The only question is, are you ready to go get it? So if you feel like, yes, I'm ready, then let's start making some actions. Let's start doing some things right now to help bring you closer so that in 2026 and 2027, you're not still sitting there saying, man, I really would like to move abroad. Okay? Thank you so much. That's all of our snippets for today. So thank you so much for listening to our finale episode. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend, subscribe, leave a review. And if you are serious about moving abroad, but you need help making it happen, I am here to help you. Okay, I want nothing more than for you to make this dream a reality. I am a person who I had this dream and I could not get it out of my head. All the time, I was like, I just want to move abroad. I just want to move abroad. I just want to move abroad. And once I started taking action to make it happen, I felt so much more free knowing that this is going to happen. So if you need any help, I am here for you. Head over to my website, www.yourbestlifeabroad.com. Click work with me at the top. and let's go ahead and get you moving. Okay, and remember, there is no time like the present to live your best life abroad. I'm so grateful that y'all tuned in, and that you've listened to this season. Please go back and listen to the previous seasons. There are lots of inspiring stories that can help keep you motivated for your move abroad. So thank you again, and y'all be blessed. Bye. So thank you again, and I'll see y'all next season.